wasn't expecting that introduction. I was not. Starts off with a woman that is going into labor, and sadly, she has a miscarriage. And it's Eden. And that would explain why she's so quiet around Simon. She doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't want to open up to him, is worried about what he's going to think. And, you know, it's interesting. When this episode starts, it starts off with a disclaimer saying that this is going to have, you know, images in it that are probably not suitable for younger viewers. Because even though The Chosen is technically not... It's not aimed towards children. Children can watch it, but it's not aimed towards children. But this was the first time where they say parental guidance advised here. So that that was some hardcore stuff. So seeing that, now we know why Eden has been very quiet. And then we cut to we cut back to Simon and Gaius. They're fixing the crack in the water line where the synagogue is. And they start finding out more about each other. Simon's like, you know, I tried talking to my wife. I told my wife I'm sorry. Nothing happened. It still didn't work. And they're talking about their different faiths that they have. Like Simon tells Gaius, you know, we only have one God for everything. And Gaius says, well, we have several gods, you know, because he's a Roman. And he starts naming them all, and, you know, what you want, you pray for this, you pray to this God, and all these things. And Simon's trying to... He can't wrap his head around it, and Gaius can't wrap his head around what Simon is talking about. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Like, it's a little more of that, you know, the two of them talking to each other. And then we cut to Jairus. He's all upset, and he tells Rabbi Yusuf, "My daughter's dying. I don't know what to do." And then he realizes, can you take me to his followers? The man. I need to see this man. I know this man can heal my daughter. And so Rabbi Yusuf takes him, knocks on the door, and Judas answers the door, and he says, I don't know where our rabbi is. You know, I follow him too, but I don't know where he is right now. And Jairus is freaking out. And so eventually they do find out where he is. And Jesus sits down and he's talking to Philip, Andrew, Matthew, some of the disciples in Simon's home. And Eden's preparing stuff for them, and she's all, you know, she's not saying a word. And Jesus explains certain things, and of course he wants to hear from everybody, you know, like, hey, so tell me, what happened to everything? I mean, he's going to ask what happened. Jesus knows, he knows, but he wants to hear it from them. And he starts talking about, he doesn't come out and say it, but he talks about, you know, it's funny. In the scene that precedes this, Simon tells Gaius something, I think, that he believes in, and it's something from the Torah. I forget what he quotes, but I think it was Isaiah or something. I could be wrong, but basically Gaius hears it, and he's trying to figure it out, and he can't, and he goes, that sounds like a riddle. And Simon goes, you would have made a great Jew. We love riddles. And so, following that, we now have Jesus telling a few of the disciples that are there at the table, he tells them, basically what's going to happen when he's not there. Now he doesn't necessarily say that, but Matthew's trying to figure it out, and he goes, you mean gone away? You know, as in what's going to happen to Jesus. And Jesus is like, hold that thought. And keeps, you know, it's like the little lines in there, like, you know, oh, that's clever writing. That's really good. And Jesus tells them about the wineskins. There's an old wineskin hanging up, and he says, if we were to take new wine and put it into that old wineskin, what would happen? And the disciples are like, well, the new wine would mix in with the old wine, and the new wine would make it explode. And Jesus is like, yes. And they're trying to figure it out, and Andrew's like, I don't get it. And Jesus takes that in, and he goes, what I bring will be put into new skin. I don't know if those are the exact words that Jonathan Rumi says, but he's basically saying, if you want to be made new, you can't be what you were at the same time. So that's pretty heavy. Very true. And then Jairus walks in with Rabbi Yusuf, and, you know, there's an interesting thing that happens here, but I'll get to that in a second. So Jairus comes in, falls to his knees, and tells Jesus, this is the first time he's ever met Jesus. He's never met him before. He says, I know you. And Jesus looks at him, he's like, do you? And he stands up and he tells him, you know, my daughter's dying. If you put your hand on her, she will live. And Jesus looks at him and he says, you've never met me, yet you have that much faith. Take me to her. And so they start walking towards where his daughter is laying. Meanwhile, Thaddeus and Nathaniel are walking, and they come across Veronica. She has a trail of blood leading to where she's sleeping, and they follow the blood, and there she is, and they tell her that we're on our way to see the teacher, and she's like, oh, the one that I've heard of him. He's your rabbi? And they're like, yeah. And she goes, oh, I have to see him, please. But she can't touch him because she's unclean, because she has that problem. And according to Jewish law, you know, if you touch someone, you can't, you know, it's very complicated, but basically she's not allowed to touch him, considering that she is unclean. But she believes in him. And so Thaddeus and Nathaniel take her to him. And just as Jairus is walking with Jesus and the disciples, they're walking in this crowd, and now there's a big crowd coming around because they all know Jesus. They all want to be healed. They're like, Jesus, please help me. So there's like a big crowd going on, and Veronica's there. And it's like all these stories that we're building up throughout this whole episode are now coming together here with this crowd that's happening. And again, we know this story. Veronica is trying to get to Jesus, but she's not allowed to touch him, and then she starts to bleed right there. She's like, no, not now. But she's like, but her faith is just overcoming. She's like, I don't care what my body's doing. I know it's against Jewish law, but I need to be healed. I need to be healed because I believe in this man. Tries to grab him, falls, and just grabs the tassel of his garment. And all she did was touch that and falls to the ground. And Jesus is like he feels it, you know, like the camera zooms in, he's like, oh. And everyone stops, and he goes, who touched me? And Simon's like, Rabbi, you just, you know, there's a whole crowd of people trying to come at you, and you're worried about one person touching you? He goes, I asked a question, who touched me? But he knows who did, because he's making that face, but he's waiting for them to come forward. He's not going to force you to come to him. You've got to do it on your own. She did do it on her own because of her faith, but now he's waiting for her to actually admit it. And she did, and she admits it. She's like, it was me. I know I'm not supposed to touch you. According to Jewish law, I'm unclean. I had nothing. And he goes, why would you touch my garment? She was like, it was all I could do, because I'm not allowed to touch you because I'm unclean. And he looks down, and this is one of those scenes where just with the woman at the well, when he heals Melech, right outside his field, When he heals the paralytic coming down through the roof. It's just like those scenes. Even when he talks to Nicodemus, he asks her, he says, "Who told you about me?" And she looks down and she's like, "It was a man from the pool." And Jesus turns to Z, and Z's like, Season 2, Episode 4 reference. And it's just so great. And he looks down at her and he says, "Daughter?" She's like, "I'm no one's daughter." He says, "Look at me. Yes, you are." And he holds her and he says, "I am so glad we found each other today. I wish I could stay longer, but I have business I have to attend to with my friend." And he points to Jairus and he says, "My friend here has faith just like yours." And there's that moment where Veronica and Jairus look at each other like, yeah, okay, we have the same faith. Yeah. And Jesus, he says, she's clean. You're healed. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. They go to Jairus' house, and Rabbi Akiva shows up. And this guy just doesn't believe. He's not going to crack. And so he finally, so they go over. And Rabbi Akiva comes out, he tells Jairus, "I'm sorry your daughter died." And he goes, No, I was just getting the teacher. We were just about to go to see her. And Jesus tells him, he's like, "Jairus, it's okay. Just keep believing." And they walk in. And this is one of my favorite lines in the whole thing. So they go into Jairus' house, and they're having, I don't know who's doing this. I guess the Sanhedrin brings these people in, something having to do with the law. And they're doing these cries, like this ritual thing, and someone's playing a flute or something, and they're like screaming, and it almost sounds like they're screaming in pain or something, but they're like singing, and Jesus is like, "Stop that! What are you doing?" And they're like, "There's a girl up there. She's dead." And the way Jonathan says this, I just love the way he says this. He's like, "Go away." I just love the way he says that line as Jesus. I love that. He's like, "Go away. She's not dead, but sleeping." And of course they don't believe him. And then he has the disciples push them out. And Jesus goes upstairs with Jairus. And there's Jairus' daughter laying down. And, "Child, arise." She wakes up, and everyone's in shock, and they're like, "Whoa!" And he tells them, he says, again, it's in the New Testament. He says, "Everyone in this room, Simon, John, James, Jairus, everyone there, do not tell anyone what you have seen today." Now, why would he say that? Because the time is not yet for Jesus. It's not yet. I know it sounds like a good thing to talk of this miracle, but not yet. There will come a time, but no. Don't tell anyone. And then he looks at the 3 disciples that are in the room and he says, "Don't even tell the others." And they're like, "Okay, yes." And so, outside, Jesus walks outside with Simon, James, and John, and there's Rabbi Akiva with Rabbi Yusuf, and Rabbi Akiva's all mad at him. He's like, he's like, I heard that you touched a corpse. Did you do that? And he's like, ugh, he just doesn't get it. So he also he gets all mad at him, and it's funny. There's a moment, and I've seen this episode many times, but this is the first time I caught this, and I wonder if this was done on purpose as far as writing this episode, okay? I don't know if Dallas Jenkins intended on this or if this was an accident, but I noticed this. And I don't know if you have. Jairus works in the synagogue, okay? So does Rabbi Akiva. Jairus believes in Jesus Christ. Rabbi Akiva does not. And yet, both of them, when they come in contact with Jesus, they both tell him the same thing. I know who you are. And Jesus has a response for one of them, but doesn't have a response for the other one. And you would think he would respond this way to the one that doesn't believe in him. Because think about it. Jairus comes up to him, first time he ever meets him, and he says, I know you. And Jesus looks at him, he goes, do you? When Rabbi Akiva says it, Jesus doesn't say a word. He goes, Rabbi Akiva's like, I know who you are. And Jesus doesn't say, do you? Yeah, he doesn't say that. No, he's just silent. Because when Jairus says it, Jesus asks him a question because he knows Jairus' faith. He knows. Rabbi Akiva does not have that. And yet this is a member of the Sanhedrin. This is a rabbi. And he doesn't believe that he's a son of God. And so, I don't know. I picked up on that and I thought, wow, that's very interesting. I don't think that was an accident in terms of writing that out. Like, they didn't have Jesus say anything to him. At least not yet. So, that happens, and then Veronica, she takes her clothes that she's been using for years, and she burns them as an offering to God because she's clean. And then she goes into the stream, and she just washes herself with water, and she's like it's all like, now you know why it's called clean. It's called clean part 2 for a few reasons. And she just washes herself in the water, and she feels so relieved because she's been cleansed from this. And then Jesus shows up with all the disciples, and this has got to be one of the happiest endings in one of the episodes I've ever seen. It's so good. Like, when you watch that scene when Jesus is in the water and all the disciples are in there and they're having fun, they're splashing, you watch that scene and you're like, I don't think they're acting. I think they're just being themselves here. Because everybody looks like they're having so much fun. So, yeah, so they're just having fun in the water. They're splashing, they're playing games in there, they're having a great time, and camera pulls back, and we see Eden just standing there and wondering, like, she doesn't say it, but you feel it. And it's like, you cleansed this woman who has been unclean for years. I'm unclean because I had a miscarriage, and you haven't cleansed me. Why? Like, that was the look she had on her face. That Lara Silva, I believe her name is. She plays Eden. That was the look she had on her face. Great actress, by the way. And then as soon as that happens, end of the episode. So, this is one of my all-time favorite episodes of Season 3. I love how it starts with Part 1, and then here's Part 2, and yeah, I thought this was fantastic. I loved it. Loved it. Can't wait to see where we go next. And see y'all in the next vlog.